Mulan. While this does count in the official Disney animation lineup, this was technically not made by Disney Animation. Or at least in California like the other films before it. Instead, this movie was made at their Florida division, located at the former Magic of Disney Animation at Disney's Hollywood Studios. In other words, this was the first ever movie to be purely made at Walt Disney World. It was meant to be the ultimate test to see if the studio would be capable of making its own animated features by itself. Since it started in the early 1990s by making a couple of Roger Rabbit shorts and giving a helping hand in making some of the animation for films like The Little Mermaid, Beauty and the Beast, Aladdin, The Lion King, and many more. Must have passed the test because the Disney World team would later on make a couple more animated features like Lilo and Stitch and Brother Bear. That, and out of all of Disney's animated films from the second half of the 90s, this is the one that would later have the biggest cultural impact, with a strong fan base and people still prominently singing the songs to this day. But now that Mulan sets out on her quest to save China, does this movie have all the strength of a raging fire? Or is this just a feature-length worth of dishonor? Let's find out! The story. Based on the ancient Chinese poem, The Ballad of Mulan, although loosely because you can't really trust Disney to make a faithful adaptation, the movie presents a more underdog type of story, where the most unsuspecting person would end up doing the unthinkable job and saving the day. Which in this case is a woman joining the Chinese army and take down the Huns in ancient times. In its core, it does have a strong ambition to tell an inspiring story and to even take risks to get into some darker territories. And for the most part, it shows in the final product. It does know when to take itself seriously and doesn't sugarcoat the implications of war, showing that it can often put someone in a life or death scenario. But it can't always stay like that throughout the film, since it still has to be a Disney animated musical. So of course there will be times when the film would include some comedy, some lighthearted moments, and fun little songs. The good news for the feature is that it does know how to balance its tone so that the dark scenes don't get too heavy and the lighter parts don't get too goofy. Then again, the tone can shift at a whiplashing speed where the characters can be singing a happy little tune, then immediately stop when they just witnessed genocide. By the way, this is not an exaggeration to prove a point. That literally happened in the film.
Wish that I had
the girl worth fighting for. The girl worth fighting.
However, keep in mind that I said that the tonal balance and the delivery of the story works for the most part. It can happen when it would miss its mark and end up having the movie act like a slapstick cartoon that's a little out of place for the type of film that it wants to be, especially when it would incorporate as many cartoony sound effects as it can. This is why the first 15 minutes of the film end up feeling weak, because it tries to focus on throwing out as many gags as possible than to legitimately set up what the rest would be about. Thankfully, once Mulan gets out of her matchmaking test, it's all uphill from there, and she would then go on to present a compelling story. The animation. It wouldn't be enough for the film to say that it's set in China. It also has to feel like it's set in China with the visuals. Luckily, the team at Disney knew how to execute the idea in a way that maintained their signature top quality and to have it look fresh to stand out from the other works they've done before. Of course, the inspiration for the animation is Chinese art from past dynasties, and one great example to see that is from the backgrounds. This is where the most details are implemented, and to make the environment feel more natural where the urbanization didn't interfere with the forests. Plus, the use of watercolors does present a more artistic style that also helps bold the colors. Which, by the way, the entire movie does have a vibrant color palette where they pop out more than most other Disney films. As for the character designs, I do applaud Disney for making some respectfully Asian characters, where the designs are a little more abstract and simpler than some of their previous works, but doesn't go out of its way so that they remain down to earth and look believable. There can be a few that would have some creative liberties, but those are reserved for the non-human characters like Mushu and the ancestors. My one criticism with the designs though would have to be that while they do look good, they also look really flat. Because of the lack of shadows on the characters, they end up losing their depth and make the simplicity both a blessing and a curse. However, the animators would definitely make up for it when they all start moving. The character animation really gives this movie some life with nicely fluid movements and great timing to deliver strong choreography and make the action scenes intense. By the way, this is actually a notable highlight of the feature. The film delivers a whole bunch of action when the army has to fight off the Huns, where the scale is massive and the fights are highly engaging by also giving out a lot of creative possibilities.
It looks like you're out of ideas.
Not quite.
While the animation was done at Walt Disney World, it certainly did make it look different from the other Disney films, but it still didn't change how it brought out some strong animation. The characters. Honestly, this is what I'm excited the most to talk about in this review. The movie features a highly interesting cast that provides a lot of memorable characters and some that can cause plenty of discussions. Let's begin with our title character, Mulan. Out of all the girls in the Disney Princess gang, Mulan can debatably be the strongest of them all. Not necessarily by strength, but the one that does the most action in order to show her capabilities while still having a good and kind heart. When she decided to join the army, she doesn't do so to prove anything related to women, but to save her injured father and to find her true purpose, since she's not meant for the traditional role of a bride. This results in Mulan to not only be relatable, but also admirable that she would be brave enough to take these big steps without love being the reason of her choices. Then again, the movie did try a bit of having a little fling with Mulan and Shang, but that ended up feeling mostly pointless and easily forgettable. Speaking of Shang, he is the new captain of his army appointed by the general, who is also his dad. He can be tough on his men during the training, but he does so in order to make his dad proud and to prove himself that he is capable of protecting China. There is also the villain of the film, Shan Yu, the leader of the Huns that is menacing, threatening, and so one-dimensional! Without a doubt, he is the weakest character of the film because all he does is try to look scary and act evil without any purpose other than the fact that he's the bad guy.
The Emperor will stop you.
Stop me. He invited me. By building his wall, he challenged my strength. Well, I'm here to play his game.
Come on, you gotta have more of a personality than that. In a decade where we got Scar, Gaston, Jafar, and Hades, you gotta put in more effort if you want to be taken seriously as a Disney villain. As for the comic reliefs, the film included a whole bunch of them like Shifu, Grandmother Fa, and Michael Eisner's favorite cricket. Seriously, that's the only reason why that thing is in the film. But among the most memorable of them all, it would have to be Mushu. Now, this is going to be controversial of me to say, but honestly, he is not the best comic relief of the feature. That title would have to go to Ling Yao and Xian Po. Allow me to explain. Yes, Mushu is a great supportive character, and Eddie Murphy's performance is hilarious. But his purpose is meant to be a genie clone. Like, at the end of the day, Mushu is just Eddie Murphy being Eddie Murphy. With the trio, however, they're not trying to cash in on the success of previous Disney films. They're mostly being their own characters, delivering unique gags while also serving a purpose to the plot. They're like if Hugo, Victor, and Laverne are not out of place in The Hunchback of Notre Dame. They're all great sidekicks, but the boys got more points for originality. There's definitely a lot to talk about with these guys, but the good thing to note is that it means that this movie has some very fascinating characters. The songs. Originally, Stephen Schwartz was supposed to make the songs for the movie, like he did with Pocahontas and The Hunchback of Notre Dame. But after he quit in order to work on DreamWorks' The Prince of Egypt, Matt Matthew Wilder and David Zappel took his place, and the result turned out to probably leave the biggest impact of the feature. Even though the film only has 4 songs, they deliver some of the most memorable moments of the movie, all while staying true to the Chinese theme and the message of the film. Honor to Us All and A Girl Worth Fighting For are the more comedic tunes that play the most with the Chinese elements.
Wait and see when we're through. Boys will gladly go to war for you. With good fortune and a great hairdo, you'll bring honor to us all.
My girl will think I have no faults.
That I'm a major find.
How about a girl who's got a brain? Who always speaks her mind?
Then there is Reflection, that is meant to show Mulan's struggle with her own identity. It's a song that expresses the sorrow of not knowing their purpose or what they're meant for in general. Finally, the one you've all been waiting for, I'll Make a Man Out of You. A motivational song to get focused, gain some strength, and to always be ready for the fight. The kind of song that montages are made for.
Let's get down to business. To defeat the Huns.
Although there isn't many, the songs reflect upon many of the movie's strongest traits. They can be fun and amusing, they deliver a great message to think about, and can motivate oneself to be stronger and better. Mulan is a movie that is as strong and determined as its title character. Sure, it can have some quirks and starts off a bit weak, but it still manages to deliver an engaging story, nicely artistic animation, great characters, and unforgettable songs. It's definitely a fun watch for anyone, and I'm sure Disney fans still love this one, but it is also the best recommendation for anybody who wants a girl power movie. Like the kind that proves that women can do what men can, maybe even better. For a movie that's almost as fondly remembered as the Disney films of the early 90s, it also proved that it's because it's almost as good as them. Hey guys, this is AniMat's, and I just want to start things off by saying that I had a blast doing this review of Mulan. Like, this really is the kind of animated film that I really do look forward to when it comes to analyzing and stuff like that, because not only is this an enjoyable movie, like, it's a lot of fun and stuff like that, but also because there really is a lot of interesting aspects that really are worth discussing. And it does bring out a lot of ideas and a lot of my personal opinions that I would like to share with you guys that hopefully it would bring up a lot of discussions and maybe we can all share ideas with each other about some of the aspects that are in Mulan and, you know, maybe share some thoughts that maybe others didn't necessarily think about. So hopefully that will cause that with this review in particular, so hopefully we'll all have a fun time talking about Mulan. But what I want to do right now is that there actually is this one memory that I would like to share with you guys related to Mulan is that I remember back when I was like really young, like I think I was around 6 or something like that, that I was at Walt Disney World. And I remember that I was actually at Disney's Hollywood Studios, or back then it was called Disney's MGM Studios, and without even knowing it, I was pretty much at the place where they actually did make Mulan, where I remember they really did try to promote the living crap out of it, where they even did this entire parade all dedicated to Mulan. And funny enough, that whole parade, it was almost as if they were pretty much telling the whole story of Mulan within that entire parade. And
I was really young, so of course a lot of the parade people didn't notice me, and I was a really shy kid back then, so I was like, no. But yeah, you know, honestly, just looking back, it was all fascinating, and it all really made sense. And I remember even back then, I used to go a lot into the art of Disney animation, or the magic of Disney animation, which is what it's called, and never did it dawn on me that it was actually a place where they were actually making legitimate animated features. So, for my older audience watching this right now, if you actually were at Walt Disney World at Disney's MGM Studios during the mid-1990s, then you actually did witness the making of Mulan. So, that is kind of a crazy thing to really dawn upon you, that you were in a legitimate animation studio where they were actually making legitimate Disney animated features. So, probably at the time, of course I would go there a few times afterwards, I probably did check out the making of both Lilo and Stitch and Brother Bear without actually even noticing it, or without even knowing what those movies were, actually. So, it really was quite fascinating, and just a little personal story that I would like to share with you guys, and maybe you guys have also seen that Mulan parade if you were at Walt Disney World in 1998. So, just a little memory I thought I would go and share with you guys, since we are in the topic of Mulan. So, with all that said and done, now that I am officially over with Mulan, it is now time that we shall go and move on to a Patreon request. And this time, it shall be from Jonathan Booth. So, I would like to start things off by saying that if you guys would like to be like Jonathan, and you want to go and support my work and get some amazing rewards at the same time, including seeing my videos before anyone else, then all you have to do is go to patreon.com/animat. But at the same time, if you guys would like to suggest an animated film you would like me to review and I would put onto the animation hat, then all you have to do is just write me an email at animatsreviews@gmail.com. So with all that said, what is it specifically that Jonathan has requested me to go and review? Well, I mean, I have been in a pretty good streak with animated films, but unfortunately, that would have to end, because with this one, oh boy, I'm just gonna say right now, I've never seen it, I've never heard anything of it, I haven't seen any of the reviews of it. The only thing that I've heard about this movie in particular is that people would often consider it one of the worst when it comes to animation. Or at the very least, maybe not that whole movie in general, but the Weinstein version of that film, yeah, it is considered the worst.
Okay, let's get this show on the road. Cricket, get the bags. Let's move it, Heifer.